Sally, and I'm back after having an experience really intense with ego. I deleted all my Spreaker recordings and my website, and the very next morning after I'd done it, I laughed and thought, oh well, I can always change my mind, can always start again. And so really, starting again is what I'm doing. I'm just having to take sips of something because I've got a very tickly throat, so you'll have to forgive if I have a coughing fit every now and again. So, imagine that there was a time when I knew myself beyond a shadow of a doubt. Imagine there was a time when I knew there was only one Son of God, and I was He. Imagine when there's a time I absolutely knew that with clarity. And then came in the idea, the tiny mad idea, that this holy Son of God could have more than everything, because the entire kingdom was His already. All the treasures were His already. His Father's love was His already. He was everything. He had everything. And so, tiny mad idea that says, what if I could have more than everything? I mean, that's a statement in itself. It's impossible to have more than everything. Everything is everything. And so, when that tiny mad idea occurred and the ego seemed to come in and create this world of illusion, and duality was formed. And so my identity became lost, and the idea that I could be the Holy Son of God would be ridiculous and laughable. But there was a time when it wasn't ridiculous and laughable. There was a time when I remembered perfectly. And imagine when Jesus was talking about the prodigal son. Was He talking about me in His parable? Am I the Holy Son of God that turned His back on His Father, threw everything away to gain nothing? We know that everything is love. Pure, unconditional love is everything, and nothing is fear. So imagine throwing away everything for nothing. And that's what I believed I did. Hence I became lost. And the mind, divine mind, is so powerful that what I believe is true for me. What you believe is true for you. And I believed that I had separated from God. If I didn't, I wouldn't be here. So, and once you accept that you've done the impossible, then you accept guilt into divine mind, and fear and sin, and those are the tools that will keep me lost. in this mistaken identity. This seems to have played out for eons, and yet the Course will teach you that there is no world, and the ego is not real, and nothing really has gone on. But to my mind that believed it was real, it seems concrete. And so my identity had been lost for a very, very long time, and it's what the Course refers to as the dream. And in this dream it appears that all these figures, the one Son of God gets fragmented by the ego, and it appears that there's 7.2 billion sons, when really there's only one, and everything else is just a fragmentation of the one. So in the dream it appears that I've been a shadowy figure, and that this figure keeps changing form. It seems to give up one life for another, and another, and another. But I've been completely misidentified the entire time. So, in the parable of Sally Ann, in the storyline where it appeared that I assumed my identity was now taking on another form, Sally Ann. Well, by the time this form came around, my mind was very, very sick indeed. And like the Course says, the mind that believes that it is a body, the mind that believes that a body can be sick, is very sick indeed. And I was sick, well sick, and so lost it was unreal. And I had believed the story of the ego that said I was guilty of attacking God, guilty of usurping his power, guilty of separating from him, and guilty of creating all this evil in the world. And so I really believed that guilt, and I felt it. And the time the form of Sally Ann came along, I was feeling it very intensely, and there's a section in the Course that says, this is not your home, this is not where you're from. And sometimes you feel this intensely, and sometimes it's only a tiny little throb, and sometimes not felt at all. But you feel like you're in exile, an alien here. But I felt this so intensely as a tiny child. So intense, I felt it like I didn't belong. And like a fish out of water. And it was such a deep, intense feeling, but the reason I thought in the form that I didn't belong was because I was guilty. I felt this intense level of guilt, and like I was responsible for some heinous crime, and that I was inherently evil, and that everyone else here was good, and I was the imposter here, and I was terrified that somebody was going to discover that identity, no matter how I tried to hide it. I was always terrified that I was going to be found out. And also I believed the ego's story that God was angry at me, and that God hated me intensely, and that God wanted to punish me, and that he wanted to destroy me. And so this intense level of belief in the mind about who I was and what God was so intense that these thoughts in my mind projected out and created a world based on those beliefs. And in the parable of Siam, hatred is what played out, and that hatred I believe God had for me, he wanted to attack me and hurt me and punish me and kill and destroy me, it was playing out on every level, even before I took my first breath, and it continued to play out that way. And everything that was evil that you could possibly imagine could happen to a child in the storyline was happening. And I felt very sad, very lonely. But at the core, I felt I deserved it. I felt I deserved to be punished, and that this punishment was my just desserts, and therefore there was nothing I could do about it, just accept it. And for every time something awful happened, I knew I deserved nothing more. And to be honest, when people talk about levels of worth and self-worth, well, I didn't have any self-worth. Even as a baby and a toddler, there was none, because I felt this inherent guilt, and that I deserved to be punished. So all this that was being held in my mind, and they were just thoughts in my mind that was projected out, and then it was playing out my belief. My belief was being played out. So it was like a vicious cycle, really, of I was pushing my beliefs out there for me to see, and then these beliefs were attacking me, and so it just reinforced that inner deep feeling that I was just here to be abused and punished, and the world was going to do it in good style. And the more I believed that, the more it played out, and the more it played out, the more I believed it, and it was just a continuous vicious cycle. And as the Course says, there really is nothing going on, and it's just the past playing out again. And and the Course says that the past is the same as the future, and the ego always promises you a future based on the past. So on that premise, the parable of Siam wasn't really looking that good, and it wasn't. It was horrendous, and when the Course says that it's just an ego program, and it's like just memories playing out. And some of the movies that you see out there, like The Dark City, and it's just like a shifting of the memories and switching of the roles, and I could literally see how that was happening, and it was the same story, the same pattern, but it was being played out by different characters.